Welcome, you young, new Escape from Tarkov player. What I want to do for the next few minutes is I want to take everything that the game throws at you before even getting into a raid without explaining anything. I want to break it down and explain it to you so that you know exactly what you're looking at. Kind of do a pretty shallow dive into a lot of these systems. You can talk a lot more about a lot of these, but I want to make it pretty quick, pretty easy to understand. Let you get into a raid at least knowing what you're looking at and some of these menus, some of these settings, some of these options, so that you can be informed before you go and lose your first set of gear. I know a few years ago, and a long time ago, I read a guide on Dota 2 called Welcome to Dota, You Suck. And it was kind of to get the point that there were a lot of systems that you were going to have to learn. And I wanted to do something really similar to that to Tarkov. So I'm calling this Welcome to Tarkov, You Suck. So does everybody. I'm a fairly new player myself. This is, I think, my fourth wipe that I've actually been playing, not just owned the game, but really learned it. So a lot of this, I kind of am coming from an area where I know a lot of the questions that you're going to have as a new player, and I hope I can answer those. Like I said, these are not going to be comprehensive system deep dives. If we want some more of that, there's people way more qualified than me, or if you really, for whatever reason, want me to do a video on that, comment down below, let me know. I'd be happy to talk more about stuff. I'm a big nerd for systems and mechanics, so if you want me to get really deep into that, I'd be more than happy to. But anyway, your first screen here is super self-explanatory. It's just going to be your language. Okay, so now we get our first decision that it doesn't tell you anything about. So these are your factions for the game. There are some technical differences as far as some of the factions you'll get to later in the game and certain map. Realistically, this is going to be your choice. The Bear's going to be kind of the Russian-based faction, so if you like your more AK-style weapons, then you would go Bear. I'm a USEC elitist. I love the more American-style weapons. I've picked USEC for every wipe, and I plan on picking USEC for every wipe in the future. But again, this is 100% preference. It will affect some of your starting equipment, and that's about it. So we'll pick USEC. Again, this is all preferences. This is my brother's account. He hasn't really played at all. This is not my account, so that's why everything's fresh, everything's new. But you pick whichever face you want, you pick a voice that you want.
What the fuck am I doing?
You know, whatever. Whichever one you want. Type in your nickname, then go next. Okay, now everything is loaded and you're greeted with this screen. So I'll start from the top and work my way down. So your first is Escape from Tarkov, and this is how you're going to get into a raid. We have a couple options here. A PMC is your character. This is your loadout. Everything you see on this character here are things that you will decide to have put on your character from every raid other than this one forward, because obviously this is preset for this first one. You didn't put all that on, but in the future, everything that you see here is everything that you're going to have selected. How do you go about selecting that? We'll talk about in a minute. Your scav is your low risk runs. So your scav, you're going in as essentially on the AI faction, and you're going to go in late to a raid, so it's not going to start with a full timer. And you're basically just getting loot, getting money. That's all you're doing on a scav. Once we talk about traders, there are some other things you'll need to think about when you're playing as a scav, but we'll get there in a minute. Okay, so you would select one, and then you have all of these maps. I would suggest starting with Ground Zero. That's going to be where a lot of your beginning quests are. And again, a lot of this we'll kind of circle back to once we actually talk about quests and some of these other objectives. So we'll kind of put a pin in this section for now, and then we'll talk about it again in a little bit. All right, so let's go back and let's look at your character. So this is a standard account. So the alpha container Nothing fancy, no expanded stash, nothing like that. So this is the bare minimum of what you're going to get. If you bought one of the other editions, which is why I didn't use my account, because I have one of the more expensive editions, so I start with a whole lot more. But this is the absolute bare minimum of what you're going to start with, okay? So let's take a look at what we're looking at here. We don't start with a helmet, but our headwear is going to go in this slot. You can click here, and you can swap this out. Same thing with any of these other slots. If you have an item that'll go there, you can swap it out here, okay? So that's going to be kind of the quick way. You can do it manually. If you just drag and drop, that's fine also. It's up to you whichever way you want to do that. Okay, so our tactical rig, you might be asking, backpack, tactical rig, both of them have these storage slots. So what's the difference? And the big difference is going to be this. So your tactical rig and your pockets are going to be items that you can hotkey and shortcut. So if we go to the splint and press 4 or 5 or 6, then we can hotkey those with our numbers. So what that means is when you're in raid, you don't have to open your backpack and use these manually. You can press 4, 5, or 6 and use the corresponding hotkeyed item. This is the same thing with things in your tactical rig. We can override this, assign it to 4. Your backpack, you don't have this option. So if we're gonna take our med kit here and move it into our backpack, we can no longer hotkey it. You can right click and use it from your backpack, but that's going to take a little bit more time. So like if you have to heal in the middle of combat, or you don't want to pause out in the open and you just want to run it while being able to still look around, that is your advantage to keeping it in your tactical rig or your pockets. Now the other thing that is you'll see often in the tactical rig, and then like this MP5 mag or these pistol mag that are one slot and can fit in your pocket, if you reload, it's going to go from left to right, and then it'll move this one like to the back. Okay, so if we reload here, I guess it moved it to that one and not that one, but you'll reload from your tactical rig in your pockets. You cannot reload with a mag that's stored in your backpack. Again, you can do it manually. If you right click and do unload, and you had one in here, you could right click and install. But again, much slower. I guess there may be some circumstances where you would want to do that. Maybe you've got a mag that takes up more slots than you have in your tactical rig. But not really anything you'll need to worry about right now. Basically what you need to know, keep your ammo in your tactical rig. Or not your ammo. Keep your magazines in your tactical rig. Extra ammo you can carry with you. We'll get there in a second. But now, our meds. See, we've got just here on the starting, we've got 4 different kinds, and then we've got a couple more here. So if you'll inspect these, it'll tell you what kind of injury this heals, okay? So these are all going to have corresponding images with them. You'll kind of learn what to look for, and then like kind of how you got that injury. That's something that's just going to take a little bit of time for you to see. They're all going to have different images that you'll see. Here it says it removes the pain effect for 80 seconds, and then it has some negatives to your hydration. And then this one has 4 uses. Okay, everything's going to have use times because it's not instant. This game, everything takes a lot of time. This one's going to be light bleeding, and then this one will, let's see, this one just takes a pool, and I'll show you why that's relevant. And then these ones here will be heavy bleeding. So kind of deciding what medicine you want to go into raid is a big decision that you're going to make before it even starts. And you can decide to not take any, you can decide to take a ton of it, you can decide to keep it in your secure container, which we'll talk about in just a second. Okay, your backpack is pretty much just storage. Like I said, you can use stuff from your backpack, but you can't shortcut it. So you can right click and use, and then you would use this ammo. Say you fire a few shots. Let's see. Let's take all this out. Why you would carry ammo with you into raid. Okay, so you fire a few shots. You've reloaded your main weapon, so now it's full. And you're left with either a partially full or a half empty mag. You can take this, put it in here, and it'll take time. It won't be that quick once you're in raid, but you can top up mags so you don't have to carry as many, and like these take up a lot less room than a whole bunch of extra mags. You may not have as many as you want to bring. And then the cool thing about the ammo, well, you can't right now because it's a hardcore wipe, but on a normal wipe you can carry things like ammo and meds in your secure container. And what your secure container is everything else. So everything on the screen right now, you lose when you die. Anything that's in your secure container comes back with you. So let's see. I think water bottles we can carry in there. So if for whatever reason you are really scared of losing food, or if you're in raid and you find a really valuable item, you can add them to your secure container so that even if you don't successfully extract, you can still get out of the raid and bring it back and use it. I'll give you a couple suggestions for things to look out for that would be worth keeping in your secure container. Let's see, what else can we do? What else can we do? It's possible to pin items here. So with our pin here, we can still move it here, but this is the sort button down here. So if you use that to sort everything, which it honestly made it a whole lot messier than it was, your pinned item stays here. So you could use this and keep like all your medicine in there, or whatever. There's reasons you would do that, but probably not with the beginning inventory. Like later you'll get a scav junk box, which is where you can keep like all of your miscellaneous items, and keeping that at the bottom is really nice. Or like ammo boxes or gun containers or stuff like that. Okay, the lock means I can't even move it here. Like I can't drag it, I can't select it. I can still open it. So it's just a little bit more security than the last thing. Right, let's talk about this whole section now, because I started talking about it and then like I realized my webcam was covering it up, so that's why I'm over here now. Ooh, jump cut, whatever. So let's kind of talk about these sections a little bit. So your earpiece, what this is going to do is affect the level of like ambient noise that you hear, versus like footsteps will be amplified, gunshots, stuff that like basically player and scav noises will be louder and easier to tell where they're coming from if you have a headset on. So you don't have to wear a headset, but they are highly recommended. Just like you don't have to play Tarkov with headphones, but it's going to help you out a lot because sound is really important in this game. Like we've got a couple different types of earpieces. These are going to change the way that you hear. It's going to be at different levels basically. It's not going to make that big of a difference to new players, but kind of as you start playing, you'll get a preference for which earpieces that you'll like. Your headwear, this is just a baseball hat, so it's not offering any protection. But say, let's see, we go to our armor here and right click it. That's going to give you an armor class, and this is class 2, which is not very good, but it's better than nothing. And then it'll kind of say which areas it's guarding. So in Tarkov, each of your body parts has its own separate health pool, and that's where this 440 comes from. Because if you look at each limb, your torso, your thorax, and your head, it all adds up to 440. So I'll talk about why that's relevant in a little bit. But see, these are some other things it'll look at. Talk about ergonomics a little bit when we get to the gun. So that's why you would want a helmet with some armor class, because your head has a really low health pool, and if that goes to 0 from getting shot, then you die immediately. So getting a helmet's pretty good in the game. A lot of the other editions will start with them. You might even be able to buy some from traders immediately. But you would do the same thing looking at your helmet. Just right click it, do inspect, and then look at your armor class. And then if we look at our ammo, inspect that, it's going to have our damage. So that's damage to whatever it hits, and then it has this penetration value as well. So you see this would penetrate through class 2 armor like we're wearing here pretty much every single time. So that's how we know that class 2 armor is not great. But if we look at, let's look at this. it's not going to penetrate through class 2 armor every time. So this is where you would choose what ammo you're going to use, kind of based on where you're going to aim. So if you're going to aim center mass or head, you might want higher penetration, and then your actual damage numbers is not going to matter as much. Or if you wanted to just spray their legs, perfectly viable strategy, you would probably want a higher damage number, and you wouldn't care about the penetration as much. So that's something that's not going to come up here because all your ammo is the same. But as you play and progress and learn different ammo types, then that will absolutely become relevant, and that's a decision that you'll have to make. Okay, face cover. We would recommend face covers because it can make it a little harder to see your face. It's one of those that's like kind of just a minor optimization. You don't have to go in with a face cover. I would definitely recommend it. Eyewear, there's been a lot of debate. A recent patch made it where certain eyewears will protect you from flashbangs. Like there's glasses, anti-fragmentation, sunglasses, stuff like that. Also, there's been kind of visual bugs in the past where it makes your face easier to see in like the fog. So it's kind of up to you if you want to wear eyewear. I feel like it's definitely less important than your face cover. But again, kind of a decision you'll want to make. Holster, you can go in with the sidearm. Usually if you're going in with a rifle, it's not that big of a deal, but you can. But if you're going in with like bolt action guns, I would absolutely recommend bringing a sidearm. It makes it a lot easier if you get into a close-up fight. There's nothing wrong with taking one, but it's another thing that, you know, you're going to lose a lot of stuff, and so kind of take it slow. Then here we just, let's see, what can we talk about with our weapons? Durability. So weapon durability, guns will get jammed and like have malfunctions in Tarkov, and the lower the durability, the higher the chance of that happening is. So we'll look at our keybinds list a little bit and kind of try and give you some direction on what to do if that happens, but all your starting ones are going to be at 100. Weapon mastering, you don't really have to worry about. Ergonomics is like the speed of handling that weapon, basically. So like we have 52 on our on this M4. If we were to add like sights, and then you see all these pieces that we can modify, it's going to affect that ergonomic score. So if that's lower than our, basically think of it as like weapon handling from Call of Duty, it's going to be a lot slower to move, like a light machine gun versus an SMG. So if we were to look at this, it has a much higher ergonomics, so it would be able to swing and move around a lot faster than our M4. And then this probably, yeah, a little lower, but way higher than the M4. So once, again, this is not a deep dive into the gunsmithing because that's a super complicated topic, but you can at least know what your ergonomics is. Don't throw a whole bunch of attachments on that are going to drop that to pretty much nothing. Accuracy, MOA is pretty complicated. That's not really something that you have to worry about here, I think. Same thing with sighting range. Vertical recoil and horizontal recoil are pretty self-explanatory. Muzzle velocity is not really something you'll have to worry about right now either. Types of fire might be relevant. Caliber is going to be relevant because you'll have it chambered. There's a whole lot of information here, and this would be one of those perfect examples when I say this is not a systems deep dive. This is really a super kind of shallow dip in the pool of these systems because you can talk a lot about this right here. But right now you don't have to worry about that. Just kind of know ergonomics, keep in mind vertical and horizontal recoil, and then definitely keep a look at that durability. Okay, so that's that section. We'll talk about health in a little bit. Food and water, we brought up 100. As you go into raid, these are going to be lower, especially if you get on like your third, your fourth, your fifth raid in a row. These go up when you're in the hideout. They go down when you're in raid. So if you do one raid and then you log off, you're never going to have to worry about these. But if you keep stacking raids back to back to back, you're going to have to start to bring food and water in with you. So you can take your water and hotkey it if you want. You can right click and use it from the backpack. Usually at the start of the raid, you're fairly safe. So if you want to bring them in and drink them really quick, you can. If you find something when you're in raid and you want to drink it, that's also a perfectly fine option. It's really up to you. Okay, so if we go over one to the left, we have just kind of the overall summary of our character. You see our total online time. I said my brother doesn't play much, that's why I'm using his account. You'll see kind of all of these just general stats. We can keep scrolling down and see there's a ton of stats that the game keeps track of. We have our character level, our faction, prestige level, most likely not going to have to worry about. You're going to have, this is going to be here your stats for just your PMC, which is your player character. And then this one over here will keep track of your PMC and your scav. Or you can swap to just the PMC, just the scav. Up to you. And then you have the option of also setting your clothes here as you unlock more of those or buy some of those from traders later down the line. Okay, so your health. This is where our 440, we kind of talked about that, how we get that. So here's where this is relevant. Okay, your head and your thorax would, in theory, I guess, be your most important areas. They're kind of think about where all your vitals are, your lungs, your heart, your brain. So if these get shot, let's take this M8 8-2, 56 damage. So if you get shot with no armor, this is going to take the 56 damage. And if this goes below 0 from a bullet wound or a grenade, you will die. Same thing with the thorax. If this goes below 0, you will die. Specifically from a bullet. It can go to 0 from other things and you won't immediately die. But that's a little bit more rare. It's not super rare, but right now we'll just worry about bullets. So one of these pistol rounds to the thorax on an unarmored person would not kill you because it would just bring your health down, but not all the way. 2 of them would kill you. And then again, your stomach, your leg, your arms. That's why our armor is really important. So if we were wearing, say, class 5 armor, this is, and you unload an entire mag of your Beretta M9 into somebody's thorax is wearing class 5 armor, it's not going to do anything. So they're just going to eat it and they're not going to take any damage. That's where you would start jumping into the legs if you recognize that that's happening. So that's why head armor and your chest armor are really important, because that's kind of the crux of what keeps you alive. So you say, okay, well, those, if they get to 0, you die. What happens if these other ones get to 0? So that's what we call getting blacked out. Your right arm, your right leg, your left leg, and your stomach can all be blacked out by bullets. So if a bullet takes this below 0, and we'll go back to our M8 A2 round again. This 56 damage, this left arm 0, so you get shot in the left arm again. This 56 damage is now going to be distributed to your remaining parts. So again, that portion of the head, if this bullet and the distribution takes this below 0, that'll kill you. That's how the game decides that you've taken enough damage to die. Same thing with any of your other body parts. It'll take that portion of the damage is enough to get the head to 0 or the thorax to 0. It'll kill you. The other thing that having a blacked out limb will do is that either of your arms will make your aiming down the sight really shaky. So it's really bad. And then if your legs get blacked out, it'll make you walk extremely slow. And then if you start to try and sprint on it, you'll start to bleed. That's where your painkillers come in. You take your painkiller, and if these are blacked out, then you won't be swaying nearly as bad. And if your legs are blacked out, then you'll actually be able to move at a normal speed. Now that might deal damage. So that's going to deal damage and distribute it through the rest of your body if you're sprinting on a black leg. And that's one of those ways, your head might reach 0 health or your thorax might reach 0 health from not a bullet, in which case that wouldn't kill you. But you'd still want to heal those up, because if those even get basically touched during combat, then you're going to die. So your stomach, if your stomach gets blacked out, you're going to start losing food and water really quickly, which can also kill you if those are at 0 for too long. So all things that are really bad. And really quick, let me see if she has the item. No, maybe fence does. That doesn't look like it. There's a couple types of items called a CMS surgery kit or a Serve 12 kit, and they will allow you to take a blacked out limb and restore them. Because once this hits 0, it doesn't matter how much of your healing items you use, you're not going to restore that unless you have one of those specific Serve 12 kits or CMS kits. That's going to stay blacked out. So being able to carry one of those, so that right now you can keep those in your special slot, which is really nice. I don't know if that'll be a permanent thing or if that was just for this wipe. There's really no way to tell until next wipe, until we've gotten some official word on it, which to my knowledge we have not yet. But that's where, say if this gets shot and broken, you'll have your symbol below here. So this is the same menu you'll see when you go into your inventory. In Raid, it will be basically this portion of the inventory. You can click over to health and see what's damaged and kind of decide on which meds you need to use. Now only do that if you're safe, obviously. You'll be able to see it in Raid otherwise as well. But you won't have access to all of this information in this detail. It'll be kind of a simplified version on the UI. But that's what we're looking at when we're looking at health. Our biohazard and radiation, we don't really have to worry about. The blood pressure and temperature, we don't really have to worry about at all. That's kind of it for this screen. It's pretty intimidating to look at, but it's fairly simple. I mean, it's really not horrible. Okay, our skills. So basically, this is our player level, and then this is skills for pretty much everything that we're going to do in the game. There's a lot of ways to like optimize which skills we're leveling up. And again, this is not a deep dive into all of these systems. You really don't need to know how to do that at this point in the game. Like, just get in Raid and have fun. You don't need to worry about maximum optimization. But you can hover over them. It'll tell you how to level them up. It'll tell you what they do. And then it'll tell you, once you actually get some levels on it, it'll tell you the bonus that having that level of that skill will get you. But you look through these if you want. Kind of get an idea of stuff you can do. Like your mag drills. We talked about reloading your mags. That'll affect the speed that you're doing that. Search is really important. We talked about doing surgery, crouching. Yeah, look through them if you want. Mastering, we saw that on the weapon screen. Don't worry about that right now. Maps, don't worry about this ever, to be honest. If you're lucky enough to have a second monitor, pull up a map on your second monitor. It'll help you. I use Map Genie. Map Genie is great. I know Overwolf has an option for one that you can do on a singular monitor. But again, that kind of covers up your screen, but you can do that if that's what you would prefer. I like having the one on the second monitor because I'm lucky enough to have a second monitor. But there's plenty of maps you can look at. The maps you get in game are usually worthless. Okay, tasks. We have two different kinds, active and operational. Think of your operational like daily or weekly quests. I say think of them, that's what they are. You'll get access to those once you hit level 5. And then your active tasks are just going to kind of be your maybe main quest lines. Once we get into the traders, I'll show you how to pick those up, but they'll show up here. Achievements, again, just kind of a cool thing you can look through if you want. You don't really have to worry about these. It's just another fun thing if you end up really loving the game that you can try and get a bunch of these. Same thing with prestige. The odds of you doing this on your first wipe are really small, but that option is there. Oh, yeah. I would say don't really worry about this too much. Okay, so let's go back to the main menu. So that was our whole character session that we talked about. Okay. Trading. This is going to be all of our traders. Let's see. So we have here, again, we can look at the tasks. So that's going to be this little green check mark here. That means they have a quest. So we can accept that. It'll now give you your objective. So if we go back into that character and that task menu, we see that show up. Okay, some of these will ask you to pick up items, in which case they'll appear in this section here. So if you die, you will lose those items. So that's why if you're not planning on doing an additional part of that quest, you can move it from your character to your stash and then not worry about having to lose it. So a lot of your beginning tasks, you can just go ahead and pick up. That's probably going to be one of the first things that you want to do when you get into the game. These two traders you won't unlock yet. You can unlock them later. Now let's see. Now we have trader levels. Okay, so right now all of our traders are level 1. By doing quests, let's see, if we look here, this is reputation here. And then this is our reputation total. So they're all at 0 because this is a completely fresh account. So to get to level 2, oh, here it is, our next loyalty level. So we would have to be character level 15, have a reputation of 20, and then have spent a total of 2.2 million rubles. That includes selling. So that doesn't have to only be buying, that is also selling to him. And then it's going to be a little bit different for every single one of these. So you have to get the reputation separately. Except for Fence. Fence is a little bit different. We talked about scavs at the beginning of the video. Fence is your scav guy. So every time you successfully extract as a scav on Fence, you will gain a little bit of reputation for Fence. What does that do and why does it matter? Really important for new players. It will lower the timer on your scav. When you do a scav raid, you'll have a 30-minute timer to do another one. Right now, I think it's a little bit longer just because it's a hardcore wipe, but that's a different circumstance. Usually it's going to be 30 minutes and it'll go down from there. The other thing it does, there are certain extracts that cost money to take to get out of the level. It'll reduce the total cost of those. And then the higher your reputation on Fence, your scavs have a better chance of starting with better items. And then I think the bosses may or may not be hostile towards you on your scav runs based on your Fence reputation. So his is a little bit different. He's only level 1, but you can max it out if you get it up to 6. But the other thing that to warn you about scavs is to not shoot other scavs, because that will lower your Fence reputation. So be careful on that when you're doing your scav runs. Everyone's going to do it at the beginning because it's really hard to tell just by looking if someone's a scav or not. The more you play, the more you'll kind of figure that out. I wish I had better advice for you, but kind of look at the clothes. Usually camo. Your scavs aren't going to wear a lot of camo. Your players are going to be wearing more camo, but that's not even 100% true some of the time. So you'll get a better feel for it as you play. Each of these characters has different items that you can buy. So we can just kind of look through. So kind of try and familiarize yourself a little bit. There are different types of money, but like I said, he uses US dollars instead of rubles, but you can convert it. Selling, they will each sell for different prices, but they also won't all buy the same things. So Therapist is usually going to sell for the highest value, and then Fence is going to kind of take, he'll buy everything, but it'll be for a lot lower value. So keep that in mind as you're deciding who to sell to, and then remember that that's going to go toward the total spent as you're selling things. So you kind of want to spread it out if you can, or if you just get enough money and you can just buy and sell to get another trader level, that's a perfectly valid thing to do also. Okay, I talked about clothing. This is where you can buy other clothing if you want to. Some of it's on the website. Some of it you have to, like you said, there's some requirements here that you have to complete before you can buy it. Don't know if any is available immediately. I guess not, but that's where you can come back and look later. Okay, flea market. This is going to show a whole bunch of available items. You can search here. This is a lot. Let's see. And future wipes, level 15, this unlocks that'll be player to player trading. Otherwise, it's just a whole bunch you can sort through. Kind of my hack to this would be, let's take our M4 here. If we right click on it, we've got a whole bunch of options. What we're going to do is the linked search. So this is going to show every weapon mod that you can buy for it. That some of these aren't available yet. The loyalty level 2, loyalty level 4. And it's going to show also every type of ammo that you can buy for it. Not all of these are going to be available, but you can inspect these. See, like this one would be one where you would shoot people in the legs because your penetration is super low. Your damage is significantly higher than your other bullets. And then so you can kind of decide how you're going to go about getting these. All right, let's see. That's kind of the flea market. There's a lot here. You have a flea market reputation, which is based on the amount total that you've sold on the flea market. Again, not relevant. This wipe, you can do filtering up here. There's a lot to play with here. None of it you need to play with immediately because it's mostly useless up until level 15 outside of that search. But if you want to kind of familiarize yourself with some items that you might not know normally, then I guess this is an option to do that. Builds, we can talk about that. I guess not right now in this video because there's no way you have access to this before you've done at least a couple raids. But I'll talk about what this is and how you would unlock it because it is actually pretty important. Handbook is just going to kind of be a summary of everything that you've seen. As you inspect new items, you'll get new stuff in here. You can wishlist items if there's something specifically that you're looking for. It'll kind of do this automatically to a lot of your hideout required items, which we haven't even talked about the hideout yet, but we'll get there. Messenger, let's see. You'll kind of get these chats from these guys as they give you quests. Some of them will give you that money is specifically for a quest. I talked about extracting on those cars. That's what that's for. When you do insurance, which again I haven't talked about yet, but if you do insurance, it'll be back in this option. That's how you'll get it back. Survey, that's blank right now, but sometimes BSG will send out surveys. You'll get rewards for doing them, so it's usually worth doing. Okay, settings. We have a whole lot of settings to look out. The ones I would look out for, a lot of this is just preferences, what you want to see. Let's see, a good one, continuous medkit healing. I think this defaults to disabled, but that might just be the older accounts. What that's going to do is say you've injured both limbs, your left arm and your right arm. If this is disabled, you're going to have to activate your medkit twice. Once to heal your left arm, once to heal your right arm. If this is enabled, then you'll continue using that until either your medkit runs out of usable health or until everything that can be healed by that item has been healed. That's all fine. That's all fine. Again, a lot of this is going to be preferences. Again, this is a lot of going to be preferences depending on your computer, how you want all this to look. Controls, I would look through these. There's a whole lot of different options. Some of the ones I would look at to begin with. Lean right and lean left, these default as continuous. I like them on press personally. Again, kind of just preference. Where is it? Aim, this defaults to press. I like it continuous. Think about like Call of Duty versus your op on Counter-Strike. It's whether you're holding right mouse button to aim down sights or if you just toggle it with press. And then that's how a lot of these are going to be. Remember this one, check chamber, fix malfunction, unload chamber. That's going to be once you start using those weapons that are below 100% durability and you get those malfunctions and how to fix those. There's even a lot of like little optimizations you can do in just the settings and control menu. So if you want to, there's whole videos on just that section that you're free to look at. That I honestly don't think I really have time to talk about today, but I would definitely recommend looking through these, at least to give a rough idea of what it is you can do. There's a lot to learn here and a lot you're not going to remember. So just look through it every once in a while and be like, I know when I was starting, I was like, oh, I forgot I could even do that. And then I would look through here and try and do it a few raids to really get that like saved in my mind, I guess. Okay, so that's all of our, that's character, that's our trading. Let's talk about our hideout. This is what it's going to look like. Your green things are going to be ready to upgrade. And your red means you still have something that you need to do to upgrade them. So here, there's your requirement. You can construct. There will be constructing time. In this case, it's instant. So they're automatically leveled up there. Okay, so if we go to level 2, it tells us what we would need to upgrade that. So these are the kinds of items they automatically added to your wish list. Those are the items you can add in your secure container that if you find them in raid, add them to your secure container so that you can guaranteed get them out. The one I would really recommend is your workbench. So this you can buy from a trader, but your 4 bolts and your 4 screw nuts try and get as quickly as possible because this is going to be how you're going to modify your weapons. And it can't really show you how to do that without first unlocking this. So this is really important. It makes modifying weapons where you don't have to do it manually. You can do it like with the drop-down menu, similar to how you change gear. Kind of hard to explain, but do this. Look up a video on weaponsmithing, and that will become much easier. And the rest of this you can do if you want to. It unlocks like being able to craft things in your hideout. This is completely optional. You don't have to do anything in the hideout if this looks like too much for you. Completely up to you. But you can generator, you can customize it a little bit. You can turn lights on and off, which there aren't even any lights in here right now. But that's kind of roughly the idea. Okay, so let's look at our tasks. These all give you a location. They all start with ground 0. Let's go to this menu again. EMC, next. These are all of our maps. Ground 0 is where all of our quests are, but we get kind of some general information. How long the raid timer is. This insane doesn't mean anything. I said they're all going to kind of... Like, factory is probably the hardest map you could choose, and it says hard instead of insane. Like, doesn't mean anything. So I'd start with ground 0. It'll tell you how many players is there. And then there's always going to be 2 rotating times that are 12 hours apart. Those are constantly running. So if you don't want to run nights, make sure that you are selecting the right time. Just double check that. There are weather conditions. So like rain makes it a lot harder to hear. Depending on the time of year, you might see snow or, all sorts of different things. The only exception to this is going to be factory. Factory, you always have these 2 times. They're not rotating. These other ones keep a really constant set of times here. Okay, so the difference in ground 0 and every other map is that ground 0 will match you with lower level players. I want to say it's below 20. It's a completely separate queue than players above level 20. Doesn't mean that the players aren't going to know what they're doing. It could be somebody who's starting the wipe late, might still get on ground zero, but it's a really good place to practice because your odds of getting players that are newer are a lot higher than say if you go into factory. Factory is a really small map, so it's 7 or 8 people are jammed in a really small area. It's a lot of PvP. It is a lot of fun, but your odds of dying on factory are a lot harder. Now there are no quest markers, so like when you look in your tasks, there's no markers on where to do these. So this is where your map would come in. So like I said, the one I like to use is Map Genie, and you go in there and you select which map you're going to do your raid on. It'll tell you all of your extract locations. It'll tell you where all the quests are. It might take a minute to find those. So kind of usually Tarkov's notorious for like long queue time. So use those to make sure you know where your quest objectives are going to be. Orienting yourself on the map is a whole different animal. There's not a good way to do it. You're just going to have to get in and you're going to have to try and figure it out. That's just going to be one of those things that takes time. It sucks. If you're playing by yourself, it's even harder. If you have someone that can kind of show you and help you out, that obviously makes it a little easier. But that's probably the most intimidating part of Tarkov is trying to learn all these maps that everyone else like memorizes spawn locations on and you don't even know where your extract location is. Okay, so let's take ground zero for example. You would go 8 a.m. Your 8 p.m. is going to be a night raid. So you can get things like flashlights on your weapons, like night vision. Otherwise, it's really hard to see at night unless you like go into your monitor settings and change stuff, which is an option, but not something I'm going to talk about today. Okay, practice mode. If you're really super like intimidated by learning a map, you can do practice mode. You can go into your settings, and I would probably turn AI to none. And then you can just go around the map and explore and kind of learn where your different landmarks are without any risk. If you want to get practice, I mean, one of the best things you could do for practice is arena, but if you don't want to buy that, the other thing you can do is do factory, practice, and then your AI amount, you can either set it to as an online or like set it to high or horde, and then start just practice fighting because the combat in Tarkov it feels really good, but it does feel different than a lot of other shooter games. You can do tagged and cursed, and what that basically means is if you were to go into a raid without any gear on, you are tagged and cursed. So every scav is going to kind of hunt you down. This will make sure they hunt you down to maybe make it easier for you to find fights in practice mode. But even if you were to go in here and unequip everything and go into a raid, you're tagged and cursed. So you might think that's a good way to like go in there and just find some stuff with no risk, which may be true, but that tagged and cursed doesn't go away just because you equip items. You have to extract from that raid and then go into a new raid with stuff equipped to get that mark removed. So you're usually better off if you're just desperate for gear to do a scav run. Okay, so this screen now. This is the insurance screen. What insurance is basically that timer that we saw here, 35 minutes. That's how long the raid goes, or until the last player leaves. Which with scavs, usually it's just going to go the whole way. So if we were to pick items or just insure all, if that raid ends and your stuff is still on the map, which means nobody has grabbed it and taken it out, this will be mailed to you within 30 to 80 hours. So that goes to your messenger. Currently, they jacked the prices of insurance way up in the hardcore wipe. So this price is absolutely not worth insuring your starter gear. On a normal wipe, insurance is good. If you're playing PvE, insurance is basically the most overpowered thing in the game. I guess right now we can only do fence. Usually you have a couple other options that it may be cheaper or more expensive, but then it would be returned to you faster or slower. And then this kind of just breaks everything down. I would not suggest doing that this wipe at all. Then you can create a group and invite other people. This kind of gives you a summary, and then you are ready to go. So that is pretty much everything you absolutely need to know before your first raid. I know this was probably a fairly long video, just a lot of me yapping, but this is kind of, there were some really good videos that were explaining a lot of things when I started playing, but I tried to make it a little bit more succinct. I'm sure there's plenty of these videos out there, so I appreciate you watching mine. And if you have any other questions, like I said, I'm a new player too. I totally get it. There are no dumb questions. This game does a terrible job of explaining things to you. So ask away. I'm more than happy to answer. If I need to do a full like video response explaining things, I'm more than happy to do that. And good luck.